From yesteryears to modern sophistication, the youth issues have evolved and are rapidly changing. The only constant seemingly are the problems, or are they? On Midweek, we unpack the challenges and talk about the solutions. A very good morning and welcome to Midweek. I am Abu Bakr Abdullahi, and more than just this youth conundrum, our reporters are covering issues that are of interest to you, and we will bring you those live pictures and updates as early as we get them. But first, let me introduce my guest. To my immediate left is Teresia Ndoti, who is a youth activist. Dio Gracias Magero, you'll tell me how to pronounce your name shortly, who is the COO, Emerging Leaders Foundation. And to my far left, Farhia Jama, who is the managing partner, Holby Training Solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, many thanks for making time for us this morning. Leo, before I ask any question, Dio, rather, tell me how I should pronounce your name.
My name, you should pronounce it as Dio Gracious.
Dio Gracious.
But you can call me Dio.
Sounds like a Greek name, but probably we'll see that wisdom on air today. These days, ladies and gentlemen, many a times people self-identify to be youth, which begs the question, who really is a youth, before we even get to the problems and to the solutions? Let me start with you, Teresia.
For me, I would say a youth is, well, according to the Constitution, is between 18 years to 35 years. But we've realized in different spaces in the world, we have different age gaps, because like in the Europe, you'll find it's between 18 to 20 to 30 years. That's according to them who the youth is. So for me, the youth will be basically, I would say, we can go with 18 to 35 years. For me, that works.
Despite the fluctuation in the UN's description of who a youth is, the AU's description of who a youth is, the Kenyan Constitution, is it a bracket that anyone who is at below 35 finds his or herself?
I think, so for me, Kenya is privileged to be covering 18 to 35. We just a loss of 2 years, where other descriptors or description says 15. So basically, when you look at the UN description, AU description, and even going to other regional, body descriptions, I think Kenya covers the whole of that. So yes, I would agree with Teresia that 18 to 35 looks good. I mean, 18 is also that age where we have the freedom,
ID.
Yeah.
Depending on what the freedom is and what you're getting freedom of. But here, let me get you to the discussion. In your own opinion, who do you think is a youth?
A youth is a person who's just in between that 18 to 35. But I feel like 35 have become an adult for me. It's just that we're giving them the privilege of still being a youth, but at least they've gotten out of the bracket. To me, that's what my...
Very often when we have discussions about young people, there's often, we as the media, and people often conflate between who a youth is and what youthfulness is. Is there a difference in that?
I think when you talk about youthfulness, for me, I would describe it as the gap or that transition between childhood to adulthood. And it's that time where we, a person has just completed generally high school in Kenya, yet to discover what they want, yet to discover who they are sometimes. And then there's the adult bit of, where life has already been defined. So that transition between.
And is that often a bracket that is used as a justification by anyone who seemingly wants to look young? Farhia?
Yes, because people don't want to grow old. Because we just want to remain young because of the energetic aspect or the opportunities that come with being a young person. So I think many people are conflicting because they want the opportunities that are in this age. And why they are conflicting is because when they were at this age, they didn't grab those opportunities. And so that's why there's a conflict.
Teresia, often we see people as aged as 70 plus years saying they have a youthful spirit.
Yes, we do. And that is just a way of them saying that I deserve that opportunity as well. Because like Faria said, when they were a youth, in that the youth bracket age more so, they didn't have these opportunities. The opportunities didn't exist. So they feel like they missed out. So they tend to justify, I'm still youthful in spirit, so that they can also get the opportunities which are currently available.
It's good that the two ladies are talking about people missing out on the opportunities. Seemingly that is a circle, isn't it?
Yes.
The youth of today will be old tomorrow, and seemingly
Yes.
they will have also missed out on that opportunities.
Yeah.
You believe so?
Yes.
Definitely.
Fair enough. And what are these opportunities then that young people miss on, dear?
I think for me, being a youth, and I'll just refer to the description I was talking about, the discovery moment, and also that is at that moment that I believe the potential is maximum and optimum. And I mean, there are numbers. So if you hear, for example, our president saying he's youthful, he has to relate, and everyone seems to want to relate with the youth because there are numbers and opportunities. And, there's
And before you go further, why would
Yeah.
everyone want to relate to young people?
Just agreeing with Teresia and Faria here, it's because there are opportunities there. And opportunities are also in numbers. In the Kenyan context, let's talk of politics just briefly. If I throw if a politician says they are youthful and they want to relate with the youth, that is basically a strategy to get numbers. But when you talk about opportunities, basically at the discovery process, where there is education opportunities, scholarship opportunities, training opportunities, opportunities to start businesses, it's at that youth age that all these opportunities are targeted, because it's at this point that these people or young people are discovering themselves. And so everyone wants to tap into that regardless of their age as a number. Yeah, and I feel that is where we all seem to target.
Fair enough. On Monday, the globe marked the International Youth Day. More than just the celebrations, more than the recognition. What kind of a significance does such a day have?
I think that such a day is very important because, first of all, it reminds everyone else why the youth are important. Like in Kenya, the youth is the largest population in the country so far, and it reminds us why they all need to concentrate on us, why they need to create more and more opportunities. As youth, it's the time that we make mistakes as youth. Those opportunities, if it's a scholarship, I go apply for the scholarship, I go study. If I come back and work and I realize maybe I don't like the job that I'm doing, then I can, correct my mistake. And for such a day, like the president said, he's opening up more youth empowerment centers. He also reminded us, the youth Kenyans, who, like for me, I didn't know it existed before. So for me, I became more aware that, so we have youth empowerment centers. And basically, they're supposed to do 1, 2, 3, like talent and all those things.
The fact that you didn't know these centers exist is already a question on its own, of which we'll talk about it a little bit later on awareness. For here, the same question, more than the ritual of it being on the 12th of August every year, what kind of a significance does such a date have?
The date has a unifying aspect where now people wake up, the young people wake up and bring themselves together. But in the other days, they don't even know that day is for them. So they end up finding people celebrating them, then they're just finding themselves, they're discovering themselves, so they're just lost. So at least it's a unifying factor, and it's an exponential stage. Just like you climb a hill, it's that steep area. So people are reminded, oh, you're in this stage, make use of it. So I think it's a good factor, but I'm not thinking that people are really utilizing it.
Fair enough. And as we continue to set pace for this discussion, we'll talk of the problems a little bit later. If someone was to challenge you, dear, to paint a picture of the youth situation in Kenya, how will that picture look like?
I usually look at it in 3 perspectives. 1 is the social status, 2 is economic status, and 3 is the political, status, because leadership has really been politicized in this country. And on top of that, I give a blanket or an umbrella of education. So if I was to paint that, I feel that previously the youth have been going through a journey of self-discovery. I mean, I'm happy Teresia just discovered their empowerment centers, which are actually being renovated. So means they have been existing. Okay. So there's a level of socially and even economically, the level of access to information has been very limited. But then we have had the general expectation that somebody is supposed to give us that information. And I love that right now that is transforming. Youth are going out there and not just depending on someone, but starting even their own initiatives. So I feel like we are slightly below average in terms of where we want to go, but there is deliberate effort by the youth themselves, which is a good thing.
For here, if the information does not exist, if, as Teresia has talked about, realizing these centers exist for the first time this week, if that information doesn't exist, don't they have a responsibility to check out for it?
Yes, that's the responsibility they're not taking up because, 1, it's their duty to find that information. No one should be feeding you, and the youth have this entitlement aspect of bring the food to my desk or my plate, not going out there to search for knowledge, because everything
And
is
could it
searched
be
for.
that they are searching for this food and they are not finding it? Little wonder, sit on the table and wait for it to come.
You see,
Could
where
it be?
are they searching it for? Most of them, 90%, are sitting at their homes watching Netflix, trust me. They're not searching for it. But the few who are searching for it are finding it. So that's the aspect. I like what Dio has said. Their youth are coming up, waking up. Now the technology world has given them the access to information. But what do we use this technology for? So we're not going to sit there and just wait for the food to be served. But right now they're waking up.
Fair enough. And I gather from you two, Dio and Farhia, that there's a sense of reawakening among the youth.
Yes.
And then let me ask you that, Teresia, what does that reawakening include?
The reawakening includes, first of all, discovering our skills. Discovering the fact that I do not, just because I went to school and I graduated does not mean I'm entitled to be employed. It means I can start my own.
But for a system that works, you graduate and you get a job.
That's what we were fed.
That's for sure.
Which is true or false?
So, I can say.
Go ahead.
Oh, it's interesting.
Yes.
I think for me, just to pick on what you're saying, we'll need to go back and define what we mean by getting a job. You know, because generally, previously, you know, post-colonial, a couple of years after independence, getting a job was typically you become, you know, before, just by the fact that you get that letter to university, if you're lucky, or college, you become like a government clerk or something. So by the time you're graduating, there is a guarantee of getting a job, which in this case is a government pensionable job. But then that competition has increased. Right now we are actually graduating anything between 50,000 to almost 80 to 100,000 every year. And as an individual, if I'm graduating today, I'm just a drop. And if we look at the number of jobs being created, quote unquote, are actually,
Why quote unquote? Why not created for reality?
because those numbers are existing, but the reality is not existing. You know, I haven't seen a report that says that of the 100, you know, averagely or on the higher side graduates this year, 70,000 of them have gotten jobs and been absorbed. So that basically, that statistic is not existing. But then there is a statistic that I call amorphous, where we are saying we are creating 500 or 200,000 jobs. And so I think, just to agree, in summary, is the realization, there is need for young people to realize that it's very competitive and therefore redefine job for them. And that goes back to what Faria is saying, pushing ourselves.
Fair enough. And let me pose this question to Farhia, whom you pointed at now. Farhia, wasn't it the case, and isn't it still the case, that we were told, go to school, education is the key to success?
Yes. But what kind of education are we focusing on? The quality of education in our schools is flawed. Let's start thinking, are we offered what we need to be?
And do you think that is the genesis for the problems that we have now?
Yes, right now, that's why Kenya is thinking of changing the curriculum. How many years down the line have we gone through the same curriculum and people never talked about it? So are we being given the skill set we need that is required for these jobs in the first place? So if we're not being given, then why are we having this education? So the aspect of education is supposed to be looked at in a different angle. Are we having the right quality, sustainable education?
And just to add on what Faria said, you'll find that even in the organization as you work, you'll find employers saying the thing with us youth, we are taught in theory, but when it comes to practicality, we are not able to do it. I'm able to write reports, but if I'm given to write a report, I do not provide quality report. What I provide is mediocrity. And then this brings down to, like what you were saying, the quality of education that we get in our system. Is it training us, preparing us for the practical aspect of the jobs, or is it just for me to get that degree and say, okay?
Many a times when young people, and you have a right, we have a right to point fingers at the education system, many a times what I hear from academics on the other end in their own defense is that we give you the theoretical plus partly the practical, but you're not aggressive enough to go and do it outside there.
I think I'm an educationist with a very strong background in education, though I'm not practicing actively. I look at education in different perspectives. So the first perspective is the definition of education in the curriculum, learning and being able to sing those words and cram and answer the questions. But then on the flip side, my definition of education for me should be an enabling factor. So let me give you a practical example, and I'm not, you know, tarnishing education. I go to school, I have a whole unit, if not, you know, probably a subject in campus on calculus. And then when I come to be an intern or an entry-level job after my graduation, I'm expected to just start with data entry. I didn't have a unit on Excel. So clearly there's a gap between what I was taught. I could cram and, do X, Y is equals to whatever. But then on the flip side, can I just enter data on Excel? Can I develop a program with Access, for example? On the flip side, to agree with Teresia, talking about education as a skills and a theoretical perspective, I feel like, and I don't want to blame the education sector, but I think I want to say this so that young people realize the reality. We go to school and we are taught to be tour guides. A tour guide has all the information, can tell the stories, but they cannot touch and do it. And I'm not saying tour guide to...
with all respect to that profession.
With all respect to, I'm saying quote unquote. But then, so you're hired and you can present your papers with the A's and everything, but then the employer just wants you to do something. Can you do it? Forget the stories. And so I think that is where then young people need to wake up and realize that they need to learn to do practice. And sometimes that time in class and that lecture time, we do not have an opportunity to practice. So we have to push ourselves.
Some of the phrases that have been used in description of young people, when they often come out as such as young people are often lazy, they're uninterested, they don't want to be part of it. Is that the case from young people's perspective?
It's not the case. One, you can't be in a room that is boring and make me want to be interested in that. Make the thing interesting for me.
But can you make that room interesting yourself?
I can make the room interesting if you allow me to do it, without blocking me, without saying these statements, or millennials, or these statements that come to hinder our growth. Give me the space and allow me to be creative. Then see if I'm going to be interested in it.
Teresia, the same question?
Yes, just to add on what she said. Let's say you're doing a training on maybe entrepreneurship, and you just come and do theory. Of course, with the youth will get bored because it's something I can go on the internet and do it. I want you to come train me practically. Make me come up with a business idea. Let's do it practical there. When I get stuck in maybe the business canvas model, show me, help me out. Tell me, okay, your target of stakeholders, it's too high, or these are not stakeholders, this should be customers. That way you're attracting me, you're making me concentrate and and take part and participate, and you're challenging me. But if you just come and it's whiteboard and you're just writing, then definitely I will get bored and I won't be interested.
Fair enough. The very mention of the word youth many at times conjures up with unemployment, which is a very emotive topic that I want us to partly talk about. Given that the numbers for the last 10 years have averaged between 18.7, 18.4% and above, the highest, in fact, was in 2013 at 19.61%. Given that the numbers are as high as this, is there hope for young people?
There's a big hope for young people. If only we are given the opportunities, or we're given the space.
And just to interject on that point, when you say we are given the opportunities, you're given the opportunities
by giving me a chance to prove myself.
And
I'm not asking you to give me a job. The society. Yeah, the society, because one aspect about the society is like, oh, this is a young person, they can't do this thing. But you see, that is a hindrance to the same aspect, because you're not giving me a chance to prove that I can do something. I can start up a company, I can start a project. So allow me to do it, make the mistakes, and then, correct on it. Yeah.
I think I'm tempted to just capture something from the previous question you asked. There is, as we say, the perspective where people think youth are lazy, but then there are actually two, if not three, factions here. There's one group of faction of maybe people who are not youth in terms of age and experience, blaming the youth and throwing, blame games and saying that the millennials are very lazy or something. But then there's another faction of the youth themselves who feel very entitled, and therefore they tend to exhibit the laziness in the sense of, I am qualified, I'm waiting for somebody to offer me the job. But on the flip side, which I'm very happy about, there's a group of young people who have said that regardless of what people say, I'm pushing myself out there and I'm doing something. So as some of us complain about, education is not sorting us out, another youth is thinking, in the gap of education, where is the opportunity? That's why you see people starting companies that are training specific skills, technical skills, and internship, opportunities creating for their other youth. So I think for me, it is important that young people realize that the blame games are not going to take us anywhere. And that feeds into employment. We have spoken about unemployment for the longest time. But I ask myself that question, what can I do what are the processes or systems, what can the systems offer, and what is the impact of me sitting 2 years after my graduation to just blame the system?
And I'm asking this in reference to the feedback that I got from Farhia, that the systems are not creating enough jobs. The systems seemingly are not working, according to what I've summed up. I could be wrong or right.
Yeah.
He will prove me otherwise. and the pressure is on young people to create things in an idiom that seemingly is a vacuum on its own, isn't it?
There's an ongoing conversation with Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, the CBC. I feel like they're doing it right by looking at history, listening to what has been happening. But one thing they're doing wrong, in my opinion, is they're not listening to the young people who are going to be tomorrow the parents of these CBC graduates. And so for me, I feel like for us to create a program that is comprehensive, let's bring every stakeholder to the table. Young people need to be part of this process. Because, the reality is if we have, a smartphone, it is us, the young people, who are teaching those guys sitting at KICD, for instance, who are 60 plus, how to use it. And then they are developing that education for us. How? And then how will my daughter benefit from, there's already a generational gap. That generational gap has to be brought together where the so-called experts, 60 plus, 50 plus, sit and pick the perspectives of the young people. And they pick the perspectives of what do I think about education for my daughter, who is probably 3.5 years right now. So I think for me, the processes are coming up, but then the youth have to either be included, and if that is not happening, they have to include themselves. And I think that's why we are here.
And we'll talk about that including themselves means a little bit later, which is being part of awareness. Teresia, let me ask you this. If the defense of the government many a times is that it cannot create jobs for everyone, is it time for young people to sleeve up and create jobs for themselves?
Definitely, yes. Definitely, because definitely it can't create jobs. Even the whole world, there's no government that has been able to create jobs for all their citizens. That's impossible. And it's time to it's a time as Kenyans to come out of the mentality of I can't get my hands dirty just because I went to university. Who said so?
But how do you convince someone who has studied to the highest of levels, assume even PhD we have seen, in a system that promises them a job, and later on that person does casual, manual job?
I think the first step is stop promising the youth jobs. Tell them go to school, get educated, so that you're able, to take part in the table, to create employment, to help you fellow youth, not for you exactly to be helped. The older generation can hold our hands, show us the way, because they've been there before us. They've passed through that. They know the highs, the lows, how to mitigate the challenges that come. But the thing is, if they keep on telling us, we'll employ you, then it gets stuck in our mind. But if they tell us you need to read and you need to be educated because it's important for you to help your fellow brothers and sisters, then even if I graduate with that PhD, I won't mind doing that manual labor.
And for here, are young people buying into the idea of jobs being created for them than them creating those jobs?
Yeah, and they're buying into it because of this statement that you've just mentioned. Yeah, a PhD holder cannot do this. Who said this? The aspect of a PhD holder, this status quo, I think it's an ego issue. It's an ego issue. Yeah, because there's this status that has been given by the society. Just because you're on this level, you can't do a janitor's work, or you can't
and just because you're on this level, shouldn't you be doing something on this level as well?
How do you get to this level in the first place? Can you just start from small, do the dirty job? There's no big job that comes with you sitting on a seat. Let's start from there. Until we change that narrative, I think we're going to have a problem with it.
Fair enough. Dio, is it that we admire as young people the flashiness, the easy route?
I want to just start from the levels that you're talking about.
Yes.
Are you this level in terms of ability to do anything, or are you this level in terms because your paper says so?
Your paper says so, probably and because you have the ability as well.
So let me try and challenge, and this I challenge myself, and I'm not, trashing education or anything, but it beats logic for me. If you go and do a degree, you're not able to utilize those skills, and you say because there are no jobs, let me go do a master's, and you realize there are no jobs, so you want to do a PhD.
Yeah.
You're basically
sit at home.
Piling up problems.
My understanding is a master's and a PhD is supposed to help you explore your potential, which most of the time we have not even chosen the degrees we did by ourselves. Yes. So you end up going through a journey of frustration and thinking education and level of education is going to provide that solution. I feel we need, and this is, I'm not blaming the youth or anyone, but this should be a collaborative effort where even the government should be able, in one way or another, or even the degree providers, to be able to like showcase the impact of that degree. Sometimes even the institutions of education have to be held accountable. It's one thing just checking out graduates, another thing asking, what is the impact of that degree you have?
Earlier on, I was having a look at one of the memes in my phones. It said, if I will correctly remember it, that in Kenya, when you don't have papers, you're told to get papers. When you get those papers, you are told there's someone who has extra papers above you. When you go for those extra papers, you are told there is someone who is a CEO of a certain company who didn't go to school.
When you're told, I think we need to know who is telling us.
Society?
That goes back to the comment you made a few moments ago, which is, if I'm going to school because I'm promised a job, that is a wrong mindset. And forget those who are promising. It is my life as a young person. There have been gaps, we understand. I have a responsibility to do something. And if I sit and say I want to be like ABCD because they never went to school and succeeded, listen more, read more, understand more. Don't listen to the haysays on the streets. People have something they will invest in to be where they are and who they are. And as a young person, you definitely need to invest. So the question is, what is that level of investment you're putting? It could be paying the fees and studying to the highest level, or it could be starting with the manual labor like people do. What kind of investment are you going to commit to as a young person?
And if then you look back, there were days papers were very impressive. Seemingly there is a shift in that. Is there a shift first?
There's a very big shift, and I like that you brought out that meme because I saw it. And how many young people are seeing that and waking up and saying that, okay, fine, papers don't matter. What matters then? So find what matters. Is it the skill or those papers? Because we've been in a rat race, following circles that are not even we can't even comprehend them. We don't even understand them. We follow because, oh, Dio went to school. Okay, even me, I have to go. Oh, they became a CEO. Why are you not defining yourself, doing a discovery on yourself, and creating what entices you and not what people do? I think we're really following a lot of things here.
You have been quiet for 5 minutes now, I believe. Teresia, your thoughts on that as well?
For me, I'll say is, first of all, get to know what your passion is. You see, if I'm in the international relations field and you're in the media field, there are different skill sets that are needed. One might need papers, other needs experience, others need practical skills. So there's no way that I want to do media and media does not really consider the papers. They want practical skills. How many years have you been doing videography? How many years have you done editing and all that stuff? And in the international relations field, it's all about papers. What's your highest degree that you've gone to school? So if I identify my passion and get to know exactly how, of course, we all want to be great. We all want to be good leaders. We all want to have success in our lives. But there are different ways to achieving that. And for that meme, if people read and they will only not just read and pass it on along and make it fun, but just let it be like a wake-up call, then for sure it will make an impact.
Because many a times, you talked of a cat and rat race. It's a cat and mouse probably because of the back and forth blame. And the notion on the other end is, you are young people, and this I'll ask, is that young people are not aggressive enough. They will rather sit down and complain than act. Is that a fair judgment?
It's not a fair judgment. That's why we are even here in the first place. If we weren't aggressive and we weren't young, then we wouldn't be here. Because young people are frustrated and they're looking for an outlet so that they can come and bring their aggressiveness, their competitive edge, and all these things to the table. So I don't think that's a fair judgment, but let's prove it.
Fair enough. Hold on that thought. I understand we need now to cross over to where the Association of Early ECDE Teachers are presenting a petition to the National Assembly there at Uhuru Park. I understand their chairman is currently speaking. Let's listen into that.
The proud professor in charge of education, that ECD teachers should not be demeaned. They should not be undermined. They should not be overworked. And we are not the ECD or the nursery school teachers they used to think of. We are not babysitters.
Yes.
We are teachers trained in teachers training colleges. We are not trained in maternity training colleges.
Yes.
Let them not think that we are failures. We are graduates. We have people with masters here. We have people with diploma, with certificate, and other qualifications. Some of us are overqualified. So the other day, we saw the CS addressing the CECs in charge of education, the officials drawn from the 47 counties, instructing them, Professor Magoha ordering them to dismiss and replace any early childhood teacher who may complain of any meager salary offered to them.
Yes.
We want to inform the good professor, the old professor in charge of education here in Kenya. We like the way he's trying to bring the education sector into the limelight. But there are areas he needs to be very cautious. He needs to be very careful. CBC does not begin at grade 1.
Yes.
Competency-based curriculum begins at pre-primary section.
Yes.
That is pre-primary 1, then 2. Then they proceed to grade 1. We want to inform the government of Kenya that as early childhood teachers, we support the competency-based curriculum. And we will continue supporting him only if we are also respected.
Yes.
Only if we are also valued as teachers. Let the professor know that most of us are harassed. Most of us are underpaid. We go up to 3, 4, 5, and Yamina the other time they were up to 9 months without a salary. You are someone's wife, someone's mother, you are staying in someone's house. But we've been taking this amount without complaints. We have not been complaining. So we would like the professor to withdraw the statement.
Yes.
Because if he fails to withdraw, the CECs will start harassing us. They will start dismissing us. Let him instruct them, or let him try and sugarcoat his words. Let him not scare us. Let him not destroy the early childhood sector. If you want to destroy a forest, you destroy the seedlings. We are the wearer of the shoes. We feel the pain. We really feel it. And I'm very happy, and I'm sure that Professor Magoha could not be a professor without going through the early childhood sector. And let him know that even the teacher who taught him at the preschool level may still, if the teacher is still alive, may still be earning a meager salary. These counties paying the teachers salaries below the minimum wage, they will have to reconsider their stand. The other day we saw Governor for Migori. He tried and adjusted the salaries of the early childhood teachers of Migori, which was somehow slightly above the minimum wage. Recently, we also saw the Kisumu governor, and we want to thank him because he saw the suffering of the early childhood teachers of Kisumu, and he increased the Kisumu ECD teachers' salaries by 100%. We would like other governors to imitate Kisumu, to imitate Kajiado, to imitate Bungoma, Kwale, Turkana, and the rest. Even Mandera is offering some good pay. Let this government know that the early childhood teachers, we are just picked, whether you are untrained or trained, you are just employed a flat rate salary. Like I know one of the counties, the official is here, whether you are a class 8 dropout, or a Form 4 leaver, or a degree holder, or a certificate or diploma, you are paid a flat rate salary. That one is not good. Let the teachers be paid according to the qualifications. And another thing, the government of Kenya had drafted the early childhood scheme of service. The scheme of service was to be implemented on 1st July 2018. Nothing has happened. Someone is hiding the early childhood scheme of service. No one is communicating to us. We have gone, I've talked to the TSC officers, we have talked to the Council of Governors, but no one is telling us the truth. Even the Senate Education Committee, we have engaged some of them. No one is telling us the truth, the whereabouts of the early childhood scheme of service. So we are here to remind them, to push them, to tell them to implement the ECDE scheme of service. We want us to be paid. We want the teachers to be paid as per their qualifications. We need the uniform salaries. There's no need of Nyamira paying us 10,000. You go to Kisumu is 20. You go to Mombasa is 40. And you come to Nairobi.
Those pictures are live from Uhuru Park, and that was the chairman of the Early Education Development, ECDE, Early Childhood Development Education. They are presenting a petition today to the Speaker of the National Assembly. Among things that he said of and talked about is that they support the CBC, the competency-based curriculum. The grievances, seemingly from what he has said, is the question of payment plus harassment that they are alleging. Of course, we'll cover that story as it develops. Our reporter Soikao Zipora is there and will be briefing us shortly on much more than that. Let's get back to this discussion that we are having in the studio. Just a reminder of who my guests are. Teresia Ndoti, who is a youth activist, to my immediate left. Degoracious Magero.
Yes, Deogracious.
Deogracious, the CEO, Emerging Leaders Foundation, and Farhia Jama, Managing Partner at Holby Training Solutions. Before I even ask you of any other question, we are talking of education, and seemingly that just happened. Your thoughts on that?
So yeah, you're seeing the teachers complaining about the education system. Now the thing is, what are they doing to improve that system? What solutions are they providing? They're feeling, I think they are frustrated about them not being recognized. I think they can make the ECD more creative for kids or fun and interesting. Maybe they change the way they do the teaching or something.
And Dio, because of your background in the education sector, is the CBC a real game changer?
Well, I should mention I've been a teacher, been privileged to be a teacher. I'll go back to stakeholder engagement. If one section, which in this case is very significant, is supposed to deliver the CBC, the curriculum, feels they are not involved in the process of development, there is a gap that we cannot overlook. And also, the CBC looks good, the outlook looks very fine, but then I think the developers and those that are creating the curriculum should be concerned about the delivery process, because they will develop a very good document, but they are not the guys who are going to deliver, it's the teachers. So I think the teachers need to be brought on the table, and I still repeat, future millennial parents, the current youth, need to be brought on the table, so that then we are very confident that as all-round stakeholders and consumers of this document, we are okay with it.
You say the youth should be brought to the table. What then will be the role that the youth will play in as far as the system is concerned?
I think for me, the youth have an interesting, real perspective of the current status of education delivery process, the way of working. I mean, even if you look at the way millennials are working, it's totally different from previous guys. I want to go with earphones in my office. I want to sit in a desk. I don't need to be designated desk, you know, basically the way of working. And that is a perspective that has to be included in preparing that kind of a workforce. So I feel like this category of young people need to be included in this conversation, so that the reality of the perspective coming from the theoretical, theoretical development of KICD, has to be realized when the young people contribute to these conversations. And on the flip side, if we're talking about teachers in the next 1, 2, 3 years, they're basically the youth that are right now in college. So they also have to contribute to the reality and actualization of this curriculum in one way or another.
And seemingly you are tying all this to the topic of discussion, which is the youth. Very impressive of you. Teresia, more than the blame game, more than the point fingering, point scoring, what solutions can young people offer?
I think first of all, we as the youth, we need to realize and accept the current situation that is in our country. We need to be aware of what is happening. It's only through acceptance that we'll be able to come up with solutions. Because if we continue the blame game and say, oh, it's not us, it's the government, it's our parents, it's our education, then we'll never sit down and really think of a solution.
And when you say we should accept, young people should accept the reality, what reality is that?
The reality that the government can't create employment for all of us. We need to create these employments for ourselves and for other youth who are behind us. Some, the current youth, maybe our colleagues, maybe if the three of us come and sit down, we are all passionate about the youth. And we say we want to start a leaders program. And we say, how about if we target this and this kind of youth? The three of us, our heads kept together. Isn't that a solution that we've come up? We've gone, identified different youths. We've trained them on the skills, and we've ensured that the skills they've been trained on, they've put them into use. Not just training and just letting them go and just continue sitting at home and watching Netflix, as Faria said.
What solutions can young people offer?
I think let me start with the CBC. Everybody who is involved in the process of CBC development should realize that this is a wonderful opportunity for us to transform not just the education sector but the society in Kenya. And we need to get it right. If there are any bottlenecks, I think we'd rather be patient and get it right than rush it. About when you talk about opportunities and solutions that young people are creating, the three of us seated here represent a constituency, represent different organizations. At Emerging Leaders Foundation, we've realized that there is a gap in leadership. But then I saw the other day on newspapers where when you talk about 2022, the same leaders who I learned in GHC, if you are, if you went to school at my time, GHC are the same guys who want to vie for 2022. So there is basically, for me, nothing that is coming to change. What is it they didn't do in the previous government? So we are talking about transforming the current leadership by starting from the youngest person. 3-year-olds are actually discovering things, 6-year-olds, guys in campus and colleges. So at Emerging Leaders Foundation, the solution we are offering is we are developing values-based leaders by providing training on governance, training on leadership development, of course, pairing up with mentors that stand for values and integrity. But on top of that, also providing livelihoods training, which basically is feeding into creating opportunities for young people with technical skills, exposure to funding, exposure to entrepreneurship opportunities, and basically just fitting that young person, giving them an opportunity that fits their passion and interest.
Fair enough. Let me get Faria's thoughts on the same. What solutions can young people offer more than just the blame game that we see happen?
So what solutions we are offering as young people? One, in my own space, as Holby Training Solutions, what we've tried is improve the education we want. An education without discrimination, an education that provides practical skills, apprenticeship, the skills that we need. So what we did, we created courses of how we want to learn, what we want to learn, and the way we want to learn.
And how different is that, what you want to learn, what you train on, different from what we already have?
So why it's different is, one, it is a practical skills. We don't teach theory. We do it practical on ground. You want to start entrepreneurship, we do it on the ground. You want to do digital marketing, we teach you the skill on the ground, and that's how we're doing it, and then economically empowering the young people. Because money is a factor that people don't want to admit to it. Economic justice for all is very important. So what we're doing is, how can you use this skill to earn money? How can you improve this society with your skill? So that's the triangle that we're trying to create, and I think that's the solution we're providing to this education system. We're not complaining on the sides, we're in the game now.
We still have a lot to talk about, and we still have an hour to go, but my director is telling me that we need to take a short break. It's time for us to take a short break. Remember, you can be part of this discussion. Tweet us at TV47KE. The hashtag to use is hashtag TV47 New Week. Remember, you can be part of this discussion. Share with us your thoughts. Midweek, rather. Thanks for the reminder, my director. We are taking a short break. We'll be back.